Hello, everybody. So, Bernie Sanders, let's talk about him some more. Bernie draws support from millions of diverse people, from Democrats to independents to former Occupy protesters and proponents of social justice, and the list goes on. But recently, some of these supporters have been rallying under the slogan of hashtag Bernie or Bust, saying that if Hillary Clinton beats Bernie Sanders to be the presidential nominee of the Democratic Party, they will not support her because Bernie Sanders is the only candidate that reflects their values enough to garner their support. And they even go so far as to call her Hillary Republican and hyperbolize that there's not much difference between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And they say that they'll stay home and not vote, or they'll vote third party. Interestingly, though, the hashtag Bernie or Bust movement doesn't fit well with the perspective of social justice warriors if you think it through. To illustrate this, I'm just going to point out three obvious differences between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. And first one is Donald Trump wants to deport undocumented immigrants from Mexico and then build a giant border wall paid for by Mexican immigrants having to have exorbitant fees when they get their visa. And Hillary doesn't want to do any of that. Second, Donald Trump wants to profile Muslims and give them more surveillance and restrict immigration on them as well. Hillary Clinton doesn't want to do any of that. And lastly, Donald Trump wants to repeal the Affordable Care Act, and Hillary Clinton doesn't want to do that. So, if you're of a minority race or a minority religion, or you happen to be too poor to afford health care without government assistance and intervention, you can't afford to have Donald Trump be the next president of the United States because the real world effects of his policies would have dire consequences for you. If, however, none of these things apply to you, then maybe you have the luxury of selfishly sticking to your guns about your principles because the threat of a Donald Trump presidency doesn't have as much weight on your conscience as the possibility of you not getting your way as far as who will be the president instead of him. If you're hashtag Bernie or Bust and you have any inclination to consider social justice in your decisions, perhaps you need to reflect on how your decisions affect minorities and the poor. Perhaps you need to check your privilege.